start the session straight away because it will take some time for introduction. Where is the third speaker?
No, we have to wait for these arguments.
20 minutes more to the other, so the 10 minutes followed by question answer. Okay? Also, so Afreen and
It's really difficult to have many people having classes. People who have 11, 12, 30 class, 12, 30 or 18.
Sure, but I'll read it out. But when I ask, just show like this. So,
English Department, BRAC University. I will be chairing this session. So welcome to the Adiba's parents, and of course, the event today is titled Memoryscapes, Historiographies and Methodologies around. So we have three speakers at interesting topics. The first speaker topic is, his name is Mohammad Afzalur Rahman. He is a lecturer in the Department of History and Philosophy at North-South University. He holds a bachelor's degree in international relations from Dhaka University and completed his MA, MPhil and PhD at the Center for Historical Studies at Jawaharlal Nehru University in New Delhi, in India. His MPhil dissertation was titled Bangladesh Liberation War of 1971, People, War, Memory. Rahman's PhD thesis, Partition in the East, Minorities, Violence, and the Refashioning of East Bengal, 1947 to 1971, explores the complex legacies of the partition of India and Bengal in 1947 in East Bengal and its entanglement with the creation of Bangladesh. Currently, alongside with teaching history, he is working on transforming his PhD thesis into a book and is also undertaking a new research project on water and the built environment in Bengal during the modern time. So, here to you, Dr. Afzalur.
And I think we should all have a special congratulations for Afzalur Rahman. He was awarded his PhD on the 13th this month. Today's the 18th.
thank you. And good morning, everyone. This was actually a chapter of my PhD thesis, so I will try to read it out from here. The introduction of the passport and visa system between India and Pakistan in the aftermath of the partition of 1947 marked a critical moment in the unraveling of partition and a significant step towards asserting sovereignty for both states. It was an effort to disentangle from each other, yet it had far-reaching consequences for people, especially those in divided Bengal, Assam and Tripura. The impact of this system continues to reverberate even today. While travel restrictions through passports and visas allowed both states to establish control over mobility, they also fundamentally altered India-Pakistan relations and later India-Bangladesh relations. Focusing on the Bengal borderlands and movement between East Bengal and India's eastern states, this paper delves into the complex histories of the passport and visa system between these post-colonial states. It explores the multifaceted nature of the system and the atmosphere of anxiety and mutual distrust that followed partition. In May 1952, India and Pakistan convened for a 5-day passport conference in Karachi to outline the specifics of the passport and visa system. It was decided that the system would come into effect on October 15, 1952. This date became a symbolic occasion for the governments and bureaucracies of both nations to demonstrate their commitment to sovereignty. On that day, senior bureaucrats and police officials from East and West Bengal gathered at the Benapur-Petrapur border, the busiest land border checkpoint between the two Bengals, to witness the introduction of the new system. However, the immediate impact on travel was stark. previously crowded trains such as the Khulna passenger, Dhaka Mail, Borishal Express, and Chittagong Mail were nearly empty. Travel roads that had functioned for decades, connecting East and West Bengal through various transportation modes, came to a standstill. The IGM and RSN Joint Steamer Company, which had regularly ferried passengers, was forced to halt its mail steamer service from Naranganj to Gwalando and Naranganj-Chatpur ferry service for the first time due to drastic decline in travels. The following day, newspapers in both East and West Bengal reported that the system's implementation had gone smoothly, aside from minor bureaucratic inefficiencies. However, the reality was that in the lead up to the change, millions of people had frantically crossed the border multiple times to settle affairs before the new regulation took effect. Many, unable to complete their plans, resigned themselves to the uncertainty of the new restrictions. The introduction of the passport and visa system created widespread fear and uncertainty, particularly among the people of East Bengal, East and West Bengal, Assam and Tripura. Despite repeated assurances from the governments of India and Pakistan that the system would not create a Chinese wall between the regions, a phenomenon known as the passport scare emerged. This panic echoed the anxiety that followed Lord Mountbatten's June 3rd declaration, which had instilled fear among minorities in contiguous Muslim or Hindu majority areas about the impending division of India. Although the passport and visa system applied to all of India and Pakistan, its implications were particularly severe for the eastern border. Unlike the western frontier, which had already seen strict permit requirements since partition, the introduction of passport and visas in the east marked the end of an era of free movement. Can you just show the next slide? This is actually a permit, like that immediately after partition, the western border between Punjab, like that divided east and west Punjab, transformed into a hard, what is called hard border. Like there were strict permit rules. Like people had to collect permits to cross that border. So this is a permit I found in the archive, and somebody wanted to go to West Pakistan from via Indian territory. So we had to collect this permit. So initially, East Bengal government could issue permit for people, but later on, that right was taken away by the central government. So it has something to do with passport also. Because the story is the story of gradual bureaucratization and centralization of that whole authority, who would issue the passport or visa. Both ordinary citizens and politicians in East and West Bengal opposed the new system, attempting to halt its implementation through protest. In various parts of East Bengal, organizations like the East Pakistan Muslim Students League and Youth League staged agitations with resolutions demanding the system's abolition. The Pakistan government suspected that the Pakistan National Congress and the Communist Party were orchestrating this protest, labeling them as dead against the passport and visa system. Similarly, in West Bengal, Assam and Tripura, public opposition was significant. However, the protests soon lost momentum as post-partition nationalist sentiment ran high. Governments and the fiercely nationalist press guarded their newly found sovereignty, treating any critique of the system as an attack on the state's legitimacy. Amidst the growing unrest, the language movement in East Bengal played a critical role in Pakistan's decision to introduce passports and visas. The East Bengal government, acting on directive from the central government in Pakistan, proposed the regulation of movement between the two countries. Officially, Pakistan argued that the system would ease the difficulties posed by the existing permit system. However, historian Wazira Jamindar has suggested that Pakistan wanted to implement the system, passport system, to finalize or to give a closure to partition and curb the steady flow of refugees from North India into West Pakistan. Most significantly, the mass involvement in the language movement deeply unnerved the East Bengal provincial government and the central government of Pakistan. Officials saw the movement as a threat to the safety, security, and integrity of Pakistan. There was growing concern that East Bengal, with its strong Bengali cultural identity and continuous exchanges with West Bengal, might drift away from the ideals of an Islamic state. The passport system was thus introduced as a measure to curtail this free movement and reinforce state control. India's opposition and strategic compliance. India objected to the passport and visa proposal on two main grounds initially. First, Indian authorities argued that it violated the spirit of Nehru-Lever Pact. You know that that pact was signed on 8th April 1950, right after the devastating riot of 1950, which aimed to protect minority rights and ensure peace between the two countries. Second, they highlighted that the new system would severely impact people, particularly minorities who had familial and economic ties across the border. Despite its public opinion, the Indian government swiftly devised strict visa policies for Pakistanis. Indian authorities, though hesitant about fully endorsing the system, saw an opportunity to regulate the movement of East Pakistani Muslims in India. This response aligns with historian Joy Chatterjee's concept of secularization, describing how, despite the upheaval of partition, both India and Pakistan developed common institutions and bureaucratic strategies that mirrored each other. And this is also true about the Evacuee Properties Act, which came into existence after partition. They followed each other. First India initiated, then Pakistan followed the suit. It was like that. So both India and Pakistan implemented complex visa categories. Initially, they decided to issue 7 different kinds of visas. Like one was for cultivators. Then there was this visa for those who had relatives and properties in Bengal, East and West Bengal. Then general visas for individuals not qualifying under A or B. Then there was diplomatic and official visas, business, employment visas, and short-term travel or transit visa. This kind of visas, and also they decided that visa people can use their international passport, or they came up with this idea that there will be a new special India-Pakistan passport. That was another thing, and you know that a lot of seamen, Lashkars, who are known as Lashkar, Indian seamen means Lashkars, Muslim seamen from Noakhali, Faridpur, Dhaka, Borishal, all these regions. So they decided that their what is known as continuous discharge certificate can also be used as passport. That was the thing. And a long-term these categories impose stringent documentary requirements, including rent receipts, land records, and tax documents. Securing a visa became an arduous, paper-intensive process. By November 3, 1952, the Indian Deputy High Commission in Dhaka reported issuing only 1,428 visas and 2,150 repatriation certificates, rejecting many applications for procedural non-compliance. So this is a repatriation certificate. Those who could not collect a visa, or because still millions of people were in Pakistan were living in India, and vice versa, Indians living in Pakistan. So they have to return to their home country with this repatriation certificate granted by the Deputy High Commission of Pakistan in India, Calcutta, where Pakistani who were working there from 1947. Over time, the visa and passport system severely restricted mobility and fractured economic and social ties. The boundary between East Bengal and West Bengal, as well as Assam and Tripura, separated people from their livelihood. Cultivators, seamen, day laborers, and professionals faced economic hardship due to mobility restrictions. The process of acquiring a passport became increasingly difficult, particularly for the East Bengal minority who faced discrimination. Many prominent figures such as opposition leaders Vinod Chakraborty and Choiluk Konath were denied passports. In case of they belong to that what came to be known as Pakistan National Congress after 1947. So they did not manage to acquire for a long time Pakistani passport. The case of journalist Nirmal Sen illustrates the struggle. Imprisoned during partition, he was unable to visit his family in India until the 1971 Bangladesh war. Nirmal Sen, who would be a legendary journalist in the 1960s and post-1971 Bangladesh, young Nirmal Sen, a college student, leftist political activist, was in Borishal Central Jail during the partition. His mother, along with his siblings, migrated to Indian Dominion immediately following the partition. Upon release from jail, he visited his mother in West Bengal once in 1948. Nirmal Sen could have migrated to India, but as his comrades from the Revolutionary Socialist Party were in East Bengal, he decided not to migrate. Also, it was his conviction not to leave his birthplace. As a left politician and somebody belonging to the Hindu community for the entire time of the Pakistan period, Nirmal Sen went to jail on and off. Though he was never officially declared ineligible for a passport, he never got one. Nirmal Sen was able to visit his mother only during the Bangladesh war. As I said, in 1959, the government introduced the rule that those, and there were restrictions also, the whole get a passport. In 1959, the government introduced the rule that those applying for new India-Pakistan passport should deposit 100 before issue of the passports, and those who already hold a passport should deposit also rupee 100 before undertaking travel to India. In 1960, the Pakistan government issued the new rule that no Pakistani who has once traveled to India shall not be allowed to undertake a second visit within the same calendar year unless he has obtained an endorsement on his passport duly signed and sealed by an authority permitting him to undertake the second journey. The reason behind such a decision was to stop the drain on the limited resource of foreign exchange of the country. Such a decision came as a difficult hurdle for the minorities of East Pakistan. Almost every minority family got divided in some way or other due to the partition of Bengal. Despite regular Indo-Pakistani passport conference, each meeting resulted in stricter regulations rather than relaxation. The system also reflected deeper fears. Both states sought to control their citizens' movements, fearing foreign influence and economic drain. The introduction of the passport and visa system between India and Pakistan was a watershed moment in South Asian history. Indeed, intended to regulate travel, it instead created lasting divisions deepening partition's wounds. The restrictive policies initially implemented in 1952 laid the foundation for decades of bureaucratic hurdles that continue to shape Indo-Bangladeshi mobility today. This system, rather than merely asserting state sovereignty, fundamentally altered people's lives, making cross-border movement and arduous challenges for generations to come. Another aspect of the, can you show the visa? So one was that it was difficult for people, it was difficult to get a passport, and another thing was even in both Indians and Pakistanis, they did not, like at least what I get from the official all these documents archival sources, that they did not want their citizens to go to the other country. Yeah. And once somebody's visa application was rejected, he was blacklisted. So it was very difficult to apply again and get a new visa, and they did not give any reason for this. Another was it was so arbitrary, like why they are granting somebody passport and why they are not, all these things. And Suppose I mentioned here that there are 7 different types of visas. Those category A visa was for the cultivators who were living with the 10 kilometers of the border. And Pakistan always wanted this particular visa to be like more common. But India opposed it strongly. On the other hand, Indians wanted the category B visa, like who had properties in East Bengal or West Bengal. So India wanted that one to facilitate people who were applying for this visa. But it did not happen. And every time they made regularly, like since the first passport and visa conference, they almost made every year. But they made to make it easier, but every time they ended up making it even harder to get. And another problem is sometimes it was like, say, a lot of people who decided to stay back. Suppose, and particularly students faced a lot of problems. Particularly in East Pakistan, since my research was like more focusing on East Pakistan, so students belonging to the Hindu community, it was a real struggle for them to secure a passport. And a lot of people, you might be knowing that there's a professor at Russian University, he's a senior professor, Arun Chandra Boshak, I think, he's a professor emeritus in the Department of Physics. And he could not, he got a scholarship in 1960s, but he could not go abroad till 1971 because he was not issued a passport. So these are the things. I'll end here if you have any questions or anything.
Thank you very much, Afzal. Very insightful. And it's the partition studies. It's a very interesting topic. Like, it has been one people, one identity, and the identity politics has separated the people. And that is what we are going to find in today's session. So the floor is now open. Any question, any comment?
I have a personal story to share. So you can also guess my age from there. So as was the custom, my Nana Badi is in Bihar, India. So my mother went to India to have me, and I was born in Bombay. And while I was there, while we were there, my mother and I, the passport system came into operation. She went without a passport and all that. And my father, who was in Dhaka at that time, he told us that he was running from this office to that office, trying to get a passport to send to his wife with the daughter endorsed on it. Because otherwise we would become like one of Wazira Zamindar's subjects at Fate, not being able to come back to Pakistan. So he managed it and uta post kore pathiyeche and we could come back. And to a small little town in Bihar. So that was what I was thinking, that listening to you, I was thinking that, my God, it was happening to me, what you were saying. It was happening just then. So the other thing is, of course, we all know what is happening to visas now. Our people, many of our delegates are from India and we couldn't come, so it has become a hybrid conference for that reason. That's just what I wanted to say.
You want to add something on that, or any observation also? Last comment?
Yeah, it's true. Like I studied there for 10 years and I crossed this Bengal border maybe 20 times. I don't know. And situation has changed like since 1971, after 1971. But still, while reading all these archival materials and writing a chapter, which says a long chapter, like almost 60 pages long. So it was like a personal journey also. So much has remained the same. Suppose if you cross India from Bengal, cross into India, you'll see here there are police. Over there it's like civil officer. So initially I didn't notice, but while I was reading, it was introduced during this time by Pakistan government, and Indian government objected that why are you doing so? Because Pakistan government even did not believe Bengalis that okay, we should also keep a check on these things, who are crossing, who are coming back. They thought if the police is there, it will be easier to control. And there are funny things as well, like suppose I mentioned a little bit about, they link this with that foreign reserve, national income and all. They are thinking going into India was in a way facilitating India. Like they are spending money. Maybe it's little bit, still you are facilitating your enemy. And suppose one Indian bureaucrat is saying, look, we should not grant visa to these Pakistanis. They come over here, and what they do, they don't bring any money with them, and they become a burden to their Indian relatives. All these things.
I have a personal story as well. Sorry, I didn't see you.
I think
I just remember the story that is in Professor Miyazaman's book about Bihari waiting for his green passport and then finally getting it and not being able to go to his home. And my personal experience, I think this is a very long partition as Zaminda wrote. I was detained for 1 hour at the airport just because I went to China for several times, and it was terrible. And even today, how we move to and fro, this is being controlled by some others. This is terrible. Thank you for this paper.
Yeah, thank you. And also, since some of you mentioned the Bihar, because initially the central government of India and Pakistan were involved, and also the East Bengal and West Bengal governments. And Bihar government was invited. They okay, do you want to come and join the discussion? Because it was eastern border, and till 1951, actually, I don't know if you know it, like Bihar had border with East Pakistan.
Oh, Dinajpur.
Dinajpur. One Muslim majority subdivision was transferred to West Bengal, and that land was made continuous. So it was like that. So initially Bihar was invited. Okay, you also can join. They said, no, we don't want to get involved in these things. Cool. Like that. And there are so much, it was so interesting. Suppose government officials are saying, like, we can grant visa, like we know that somebody is not a spy or not a thief. But what if they come here and become someone? So all these things.
So I think my story resonates with that. Before my father joined the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in 1972, he was in the Pakistan Army as a young man in the 60s.
Yeah, and if if somebody was ex-army, they would never get a visa. And that was the case.
So my father would say that he would get a seal. He still has an African passport. He would get a seal to cross the Khyber Pass. And because he was from this side of Bengal, he said that it was an adventure to cross India. The direct flights between Dhaka and Lahore were implemented in 58. But they wouldn't go by air. They would actually cross. It would take them weeks or months. And there was some fear amongst West Pakistani army personnel that these Bengali boys, the army personnel, might actually become spies. So they would be monitored constantly.
And this system was there, and maybe now it's not applicable to people going from this side, but those who come from West Pakistan, or not West, North Pakistan, it's the same.
Yeah.
Like some districts are closed districts. Like you have to regularly inform police, report police, then it's defined where you stay, all these things. And Nehru was in fact saying in 1954 to his secretary that we should actually change that we treat these people worse than foreigners. But that did not happen. And they reciprocated each other, Pakistan and India. Please.
So I have one question. You mentioned Bengal, but I'm curious, was there any difference in the other borders?
No,
like
no,
Tamamil or
No, it
Anapura?
was just more or less it was same, but I could know
Were
more.
they also more, was it more porous, these other parts?
No, the entire border was porous. Even even after the introduction of passport and visa, people across into India and vice versa. And you know that recently a book has come by a scholar named Malay, I think her name. It's called Jungle Passport. So those who don't have passport, what they do? They say we use jungle passport. Like they take a camouflage and they just sneak into Bangladesh and go back like this. So it's still porous border. And after 47, actually, we are saying it was free. It was not that free actually. There were other controlled by other means, like what they are taking. They were interrogated, they were stopped, and they were harassed by custom officers and various voluntary groups on their way to India or on their way to East Pakistan. It was like that.
Okay. It's a very interesting topic, in fact. But my point is, when I was doing a PhD, about migration also, but when I was looking for some data regarding citizenship in Malaya, so before the partition of 1957, a conference, an international conference took place in New Delhi in 1947, maybe in April. So in that particular conference, all potential political leaders across the Asia came together and they discussed about the citizenship, how they will get citizenship. So I just focused on the particular area, British Malaya. So I did not focus on this South Asian or Indian continent. So have you looked over these conference materials and did you get any documents regarding this Indian or Bengali or Pakistani citizenship issues?
I mean, after 47, like those.
No. In the particular conference, they talked about these issues, citizenship issues. So have you looked at that particular conference materials? And
No, I haven't come across anything, but thank you for that reference.
Okay, so we can look at the conference
Yeah, I
materials.
will. But I came across materials that the people who were some seamen, I mentioned seamen, they were stuck in London. So they are writing to via Indian High Commission because they still in their documents it was written they are Indian seamen and their documents from that
Indian
period.
or Bengali?
That Indian. Before partition. And after partition, it took actually a long time. Because this was introduced in 52, October 15, 1952. But after that also, a lot of people came back with Pakistan Indian passport. So they were stuck there and they came back to Pakistan with an Indian passport and they were arrested. There was case against him and then finally he was granted. Some people were sent back, but a lot of people were also granted their citizenship.
If it hadn't come in the mail, that would have been the way.
Yeah, you were lucky the post.
Yeah, like it's a postal
Service
service.
must be commendable, right?
Saved by the post.
So
Or did he travel?
Anyone else have any
Well,
comments?
let's go to the next.
Before that, if I may ask, or may comment, recently I had been in Kolkata for my research on Muslim identity in India. So, very interesting comment came up. So, porous border, if you say porous border is like India, Kolkata, Bangladesh border, yeah. So there is still some free movement. They do have what I found, some people say, where my family lives near the border, and they have their territory, property in the Bangladesh side. So in that box, there's a very good understanding with the border protection security. So they show the pass, they take their card, গরু ছাগল সব নিয়ে কারণ সব তো এখানে তাদের জমি তো and then the whole day they have their own agriculture, all those work over there, and end of the day they move there. So this is another thing I think it's interesting. The official policy paperwork has been very hectic, tedious dilemma for many people. But then again, there is a good understanding there.
Yes.
We need to know, oh my God, we can't get into Kolkata, but you see, they are ordinary people. Did you have a sense of that?
Yeah, yes, I have. Yeah, people actually try to navigate through all these things. They manage.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
There's a book by Shahna Ghosh talks about this informal interactions and the network.
Even in the
It's called Thousand Tiny Cards or something.
Thousand Tiny Cards. But even in this very militarized border, that area that we have, which is CHT, I recently went to Rangamati and I met these people who had just been to a wedding in a border area, Mizoram. They were describing how difficult it was to get that area because every time they are stopped by DDR. But when they are in the area, DDR in past, they went to Mizoram, bought wedding gifts and all that. Mizoram people came to the wedding, and when they were coming back, when they were stopped again, they said Mizoram and yes, and then they shoot the mail out and Mizoram to get you and all. So that at one level they're stopping them, and at another level they're helping.
Maybe it's to collect their bribes also, stopping to collect, lining their pockets.
So we will now move to thank you very much for your contribution and questions to Afzal, and thank you very much, Afzal.
Thank you.
So we will now move to the next session, next speaker. Adiba, So our next speaker, Adiba, Amreen, her topic is Dimensions of Belonging, the Perception and Preservation of Non-Bengali Muslim Ethnic Identities in Bangladesh. Adiba Amreen recently graduated from BRAC University with a major in anthropology and minors in sociology and law. Her research explores intersectional identity, belonging, and nationalism, with a particular focus on non-Bengali Muslim ethnic minorities in Bangladesh. She is currently waiting to start her role as a teaching assistant at the School of General Education at BRAC University. So over to you.
Thank you. Hello everyone. My name is Adiba Amreen, and as you said, I'll be presenting my work titled Dimensions of Belonging, the Perception and Preservation of Non-Bengali Ethnic Minorities in Bangladesh. My work was inspired by the lived experience of one of my closest loved ones and her wholehearted attempt to preserve her identity and culture. She's my daughter, she's here today. Therefore, the broad objective was to understand and document the experience of migrants and their experiences against the backdrop of the nationalist polity of Bangladesh. So to begin, I would like to go into a brief bit of history. Migration to Bengal was motivated by Bengal's arable land, creating opportunities for work in the fields and other economic opportunities, such as working on the railways. The transport and communication system of the British Empire closely connected Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, and Burma to Bengal, creating a vast interconnected labor market. The networks created over generations due to these migrations were often followed by migrants later on, during and after the partition. My respondents migrated to Bangladesh from all over the region, from Burma, from Gujarat, from Uttar Pradesh, and Bihar, and almost all of them cited economic reasons for their migration. While that is absolutely not the only reason, many used to believe that coming to Bangladesh meant stability and a land of their own as Muslims. Specifically, my research aims to answer three questions. What influenced their decisions to stay in Bangladesh? How do they perceive their identity now? And in what ways do they preserve their non-Bengali identities if they do so? The theoretical framework that I followed used Alexander et al.'s Migration Capital, Anthias's Identity and Belonging, and Yuval Davis's Politics of Belonging, which was necessary to understand the nuanced intersectional experiences of these migrants. A bulk of the existing literature is India-centric, while there is a lot of work on migration which spans multiple regions and fields. However, there is a gap in the literature regarding the experience of migrants to Bengal who were not Bengalis, who were non-Bengalis. And the impact of that Bengali nationalism had on these people who came to live in Bangladesh at that time. Further, there is less work on second and third generation descendants who may identify as Bangladeshi, but at times feel a gap in their belonging to Bangladesh. Lastly, the Bangladesh context of a migrant's use of material cultures and everyday practices within the Bengali cultural hegemony is missing. These are the gaps that this study aims to fill by making us view migrants and migration a little differently from what we may be accustomed to. The methodology that I used was, so I conducted 8 in-person semi-structured interviews, and I selected my participants through convenience and snowball sampling. The narratives that we talked about, they were very highly personal, so it felt necessary that I had either an established relationship with them or a point of contact in order for them to feel safe talking to me about these experiences, which are still difficult for a lot of people to talk about. It's something that they don't really want to disclose to everyone. They want to know that they can trust the person in front of them. And I did face that when I was looking for respondents, because there were people who did not want to talk about their experiences at all. The research participants included 4 migrants who came themselves. They were, and 4 descendants of migrants who were either second generation or third generation. And I also spoke to Dr. Firdaus Azim, who of course is an expert in the field and also is a descendant of a migrant herself, as she said. The main focus throughout the interview process was to create a comfortable space, as comfortable as possible, so that respondents felt that they could open up to sharing their experiences and narratives. This is some migration information, including a map which has the origins of each of my respondents pinpointed. So my respondents, as I said, came from Gujarat, Burma, Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, and Karachi, and each speak multiple languages besides Bangla and English. Advancing on to the findings, so the data was arranged according to the 3 questions, and I will begin with the decision to stay back. So to stay back, well, to come at all, there were certain preconditions, and I found that most of my respondents came from a certain amount of generational wealth, and they had an upper class status. They also had certain transferable skills such as educational qualifications, degrees from abroad, or business experience that they could use to re-establish themselves when they migrated. And they also had these pre-established social networks. Even if not vast networks, they at least had one person or 2 people that they could contact in the new country who could help them navigate the process of migration. There were certain factors post-migration as well which led to their decision to stay back in the country. Firstly, it was stability in income and social standing. Those who had pre-established businesses in East Pakistan were able to just migrate and join these businesses because these businesses had branches basically, some in East Pakistan, some in West Pakistan, some in India. And they were able to come to East Pakistan and just join their family business. Others, if they did not have economic opportunities, they had pre-established social networks, which I already spoke about, aiding in assimilation and making it easier to put down roots. A deciding factor for a lot of female migrants was marriage, as marriage into a Bengali family solidified their place in Bangladesh. Women were also particularly responsible for creating home. by acculturating the family and passing on norms and values, staying home, which was not always by choice. They created a home by acculturating children and recreating the socio-spatial household, thus becoming homemakers in the truest sense of the word. Thus, it often came with the loss of social and familial connections, as many left their pre-established networks behind to follow their husband's peace. One respondent's wife stated that she spent her first few weeks in Dhaka crying, while other descendants echoed that their mothers had lost deep connection to their home and were often married young. Migration, more often than not, was about opportunity, and it was seen that most migrant mothers were bound to the home, while their daughters had much greater opportunities for education and professional growth. This was particularly true for one respondent, whose mother was directly denied from furthering her education and doing business, but the respondent herself was a highly educated woman and she was a lifelong professional. Further, business-holding migrants stated that the new Muslim-majority country had considerably better business opportunities, thus realizing a part of the dream of Pakistan. Shifting to perception, I divided this chapter into three parts. The first being the host community's behavior, and secondly, self-perception, and lastly, generational shifts. Although most participants stated they had a positive experience with the host community, they still cited instances of hostility steeped in a nationalist narrative. Some respondents faced taunting, others faced intrusive questioning, and one respondent's mother faced the allegation that she had seduced a good Bengali man into marrying someone who's not Bengali. The self-perception of the respondents was influenced by their feelings of belonging or not. It was seen that there was a strong connection to where one spent their childhood, often considering that their original home. This at times flowed into the children depending on the level of acculturation versus assimilation and the proximity to Bengali culture. Women of migrant families also actively reproduced culture. They did so via the transmission of norms and values, of course, but also practicing heritage language and food in the home. Most migrants now consider themselves Bangladeshi and feel a sense of loyalty to the country. Performance of gender roles differed between migrants and their descendants, as most migrant mothers were seen as more traditional rather than their daughters, who felt that due to the difference in their choice of household involvement or care and career choices, they were less traditional than their mothers. As stated previously, most respondents came from an upper class background, but some faced a loss in status in Bangladesh, at times ethnically motivated. Those with pre-established businesses held on to their status, while those who had to build up faced setbacks in a way of loss of business and land. Others were married into middle-class families owing to their fallen status. These losses were they were felt through the downsizing of living quarters or diminishing amenities. Generational shifts were mainly felt in perception, were categorized by a feeling of confusion regarding their where. Although there was pride in ethnic heritage, there was a difficulty in pinpointing where home is different because of the difference from their predecessors and a lack of access to their ancestral homes. Lastly, access to heritage material conditions categorize migrants' level of preservation of their ethnic identities. Beginning with the factor that saw the most assimilation, dress practices saw a major change between migrants before they migrated and after. Because women especially, they had to leave their traditional clothing behind in favor of the shari, which was in vogue at the time when they migrated. However, now their descendants are free to choose whatever they want to wear because sharis, kurtas, kameez, western clothing, they're all widely accepted in Bangladesh now. Moving on to food, this saw the least generational shift. Food acted as a medium of exclusion and inclusion. It differentiated migrants from the host community while simultaneously pulling the host community in through positive curiosity. Women were once again reproducers of culture through food, using it to keep their connection to their native lands alive and introducing their descendants to it as well. It acted as a catalyst for memory, often transporting both migrants and descendants to certain places in time and space. Lastly, and arguably one of the most important aspects of preservation was language. For most migrants, keeping up with the heritage language was essential to the survival of their identity, at times relying on books and social media to keep up if no one else was there to speak the language with them. Others taught their descendants the language by using it as a household language and to keep up with relatives, while older Urdu-speaking descendants were able to learn the language through their education due to the prevalence of it pre-1971. Most other Hindi and Urdu speakers were exposed to it through media and literature, although most also learned Bangla to assimilate better. In conversation with Dr. Azim, she stated that Urdu could be considered a language native to Bangladesh, although this is no longer the case. This has resulted in feelings of loss for some respondents, as one states. It hardly has a place here, but it has a place for her. So, to conclude, it is essential to hold on to the narratives and experiences of these migrants in Bengal, as they show us that the culture of Bangladesh was not only limited to Bengali culture, but also was pluralistic, mixing and matching, a melting pot of different traditions. Women in saris and shararas sharing the same street, people indulging in shared shairi, paint an entirely different picture of the Dhaka from what we know today. The lived realities of my respondents allow us to fight the grip of Bengali nationalism on our consciousness and allow us to create a space for the multiple others living within our borders.
I was undoubtedly thinking, can you tell us more about all the responses? We had like that table.
We're only one from Burma, yes, Kabir.
Yeah, we had lots of respondents from all
So
sorts
what's so
of
positive?
places.
Yes,
Yes.
so the first
And with lots of languages, unexpected languages, mother tongues, Gujarati.
The first and second respondent that I spoke to, so it says Gujarati, but she was ethnically Gujarati, but she actually migrated from Burma because her family was doing business in Burma, which was basically true for the first respondent as well.
There are like because of the there are some nuances like because it's a presentation, but if you go to the thesis and the different community has very different kind of essays, and I think that is the strength of the work as well, is to like let us look back in a Bangladesh where many things were possible. Yeah, so there's I think one was from Bora community,
Yes,
and then
Abdul he's Gujarati, but he is a Bora Muslim.
yeah.
So you said like a difference between Surtis, Biharis, do they make the distinction? Or do they simply see themselves as non-Bengali?
No, they absolutely do.
Yeah, I'm sure they do. I would like you to elaborate.
Those who migrated themselves, they definitely distinguish themselves more. The descendants, those whom I spoke to, they did sort of make a distinction, but it depended on how much their parents or grandparents shared with them, or how much they got to see their parents and they got to interact with their parents. Like one of the third generation respondents that I had, she was very close to her grandparents, who were both non-Bengali. So her cousins, their entire family was very close, and she felt very close to her different cultural aspects. Whereas another whose mom migrated very young, she grew up in Bangladesh, so she knew that she had non-Bengali lineage. She knew that she was not Bengali, but she had just assimilated so much that she didn't really make that much of a distinction.
So assimilation and integration is a major part of belonging. Yes.
But all these people stayed on in Bangladesh, they did not migrate.
I especially looked into people who decided to stay on rather than who had, a lot of them did have opportunities to leave. They had opportunities to go to the West, but they chose to stay back. They wanted to be here.
How do you see yourself and being in a generation where you must have contact with other people who also have a mixed ethnic background and identify as being many things? So how much do you see others being conscious about this and thinking about their identity? I mean, how do you see yourself in this generation?
I mean, when I was little, I didn't even realize. I thought this was the norm. I thought, because it was just very naturalized into our house, right? Because we ate bhat dal one day and then we ate house stuff. You know, it wasn't a big deal. It was just what was the norm. But I started thinking about it when I came to BRAC and I started doing anthropology, and then I realized that, oh, okay, so this is a different experience. And then it became something to study. But for a lot of people, I think, like I said, if they had a lot of contact with their non-Bengali side, they definitely probably thought about it. It came in waves, sort of. Like, one respondent stated that even though she grew up in Bangladesh, she grew up speaking multiple languages, but she also learned Bangla. But her Bangla teachers used to tell her that, no, there's something wrong with your accent. You know, that these little things that other people who were naturalized to and being Bengali, they probably didn't face anything like that. But for her, it was like, but what is wrong? Nobody can pinpoint that there's something different, but there's something different. This is sort of the experience that I've seen.
I'm just wondering about the table, second column, ethnic identity, right? So you put all ethnic identity, but I do not see in the ethnic identity schema. It is Indian. Indian is national identity, not. So they did not want to disclose their identity, or
mainly because she's from Hyderabad, Bangladesh, and she does not have any ethnic identity that is specific to Bangladesh. So she felt that ethnically she's Indian. So that is what that was her understanding of her ethnic identity.
Indian, Bengali, it's a national identity, not in particular.
The question of identity is how you identify yourself.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. She would like her.
So,
And for
in
Pakistan,
the
you're
sense,
Hindustani.
like, what really doesn't matter, but
Maybe they will, in India they would say
Hindustani,
Yeah,
Hyderabad says Hindustani.
No, they wouldn't even say Hindustani. I think you're right. There might be a difference between the Muslims don't really identify themselves as
a Hindustani.
as a Hindustani.
Excellent.
Even then, the Bengal tape, I think it's a very good question. I think it's worth exploring. How would they identify themselves?
Yes.
But they do say Hyderabad. But I mean, those who come from Hyderabad, they're quite proud of being Hyderabad.
Yeah. But also,
Why I'm telling this? Because when I was working,
Indian, even West Bengalis they call Indian.
Yes.
But the migrants themselves, they call themselves Malay,
We jagger each other. That sense of belonging.
and I may say I'm from Bihar,
Yeah.
but not Indian. But
yes,
Yeah.
Bengalis say I'm they're Indian.
India, yes.
We other than
But the Tamils, they say we are
From
Tamil,
Madras, they say we are Tamil.
not Indian.
Yeah, they have a very strong.
Yes, strong, very strong ethnic identity, not
Dravidian identity, yeah, ethnic identity.
not national.
But
especially in Malaysia.
Yes, I'm born in Malaysia and Singapore.
Identity is always in a flux. I can be a Bengali today, I can be an Australian tomorrow, I can be a Muslim woman today, you know, or a broad, multiple and single identity. It depends on the circumstances and then what mood they are in. Alright, yeah, so it is in a flux. So that doesn't mean she will always say she's an Indian. Say, I'm from this is my ethnic identity.
No, absolutely. When she elaborated, she said, yes, I'm Indian, my parents are Indian. But then when she spoke about the specifics, when she spoke about the food, when she spoke about the cultural experience of being Indian, she said that food from Saharanpur or food from Faizabad, stuff like that. I mean, I saw this more with my respondents from Uttar Pradesh. They didn't have a term for their ethnic identity in that sense. They just used Indian
Broadly.
Can it be like because of the place of origin, can it be like they wanted to avoid terms like Bihari or refugee because these are like, you know, how these are used, we know.
That is possible.
Yeah. Here what we call Bihari, but actually They are not all from Bihar, like from
Yes.
UP, from
Yes,
other
yes.
parts of
Yes.
India.
They are all not from Bihar. But we told them clearly.
Yeah.
I was
Mostly they're Hindi or Hindustani based.
speaking about Bihar. So in Kolkata there is a place called Raja Bazaar, where there is a concentration of people from Bihar. So anyway, I interviewed some of the Bihari people migrating from Bihar to Kolkata. There's a big population. So one of the participants was saying, I said, what language do you speak? As you spoke about the language component. He said that we speak Kolkata. That's what, and I said, I will report you in my book. I just loved it. So it's a mixture of Hindi, it's a mixture of Tamil, it's a mixture of Bengali. So I thought that was a good way of, that was a great expression about it for him. So about the language, the third generation, as he was asking you, how to place yourself. If anybody has any question, please do interrupt. What do you have in? What is your? Say, for example, your what language you speak at home, or linguistic sort of component in your personal life.
In my home, so my grandmother was an English tutor, and so mom and grandmother, they taught me languages at the same time. So I learned English and Bangla side by side. But we used to hear Urdu at home, we used to hear Hindi at home. And at times we used to hear Burmese as well, but not to us. We had certain words that were code words. Those were Burmese words that we used in the house. So that was my experience with language. But my main languages are at the end of the day Bangla and English. The others were supplementary. Things that I heard, but I did not really take them on.
While interviewing, did you find speaking with somebody in Urdu was a connecting factor? That's the big part of
the second
languages.
respondent, her mother was there, but she's very aged. She's very ill now. She's not really able to interact the way that she might have once upon a time. But she could only really speak Urdu, so I had to use my very broken, horrendous Urdu with her. And she said this thing that I kept using in my later interviews. And she was like, "Mushkil se aati hai."
Anybody else?
But I have one thing to add here. So it depends on what language you speak. You don't have to be an Indian or a Indian, because I grew up speaking 5 languages. Because I was in Saidpur, and in Saidpur you speak Marwari, you speak Bihari and Bhojpuri, like not only Bihari, like Bhojpuri, yeah. So Bhojpuri and then Bangla and Balay and English. So these are the 5 languages that I was very fluent, and I'm still fluent. When I go there, like whoever I'm talking to, because I
will test you on your Urdu.
Let's do this. You don't be as fluent, but I can manage. But one of the reasons, and of course she's my supervisee, the reason we have like this projects were mini projects that we've been doing, and part of this is like actually to explore the diversity of what Bengal once used to be. So the partition and the memory making or memoryscape, whatever we call it, instead of looking into the past with the longing and despair, I think there are a lot more things to learn and to bring in, and also acknowledge the diversity that Bengal still holds. So it doesn't have to be Bihari. I'm not like, my parents are not Bihari, but my nanny grew up in, like, had 3 or 4 passports or whatever visas they had, like Assam, Bengal thingy, and then Pakistani, and then Bangladeshi. So we all have gone through those transformations. It's yeah. I think the very nationalistic zeal actually erases all those memories we once had very, very dear.
So diversity is the strength. That's what we should cherish.
One personal
Thank you.
Yes.
How do you jump from one language to the other?
It was very easy because I was like, I started speaking the 5 languages when I was 4 and 5. And then I went back and only spoke English and Bangla. And then I came back to Silchar again. So the things like it's very automatic because you are meeting different kind of people and that is the only thing that you do. Right? So like when you are talking to a smuggler, Sariali Khala, you only speak Bhojpuri. I mean, there's no other way you are speaking to her in Bahe or in Bangla. English, so there's no question. And then for local, because I was not of that place, right? So, I mean, it is a mixed community, but I was not neither Bahe nor Bihari. So I had to prove myself 5 times more. So my best friend was Marwari. So I learned Hindi from her actually. So like I can read and write. So those are the things that you grow up and you learn, and then each household you go, you speak a different language.
Can we hear something in Bahe? Can we hear something in Bahe? I'm just very curious.
I'm talking foreign personally.
Okay, so I think we will now move on to the next session. Thank you very much. So the last speaker for this panel is Dr. Mizanur Rahman, and his paper is titled "A New Perspective in the Studies of the Bengal Partition: A Focus on the Bengali Diasporic Community in the Malay Peninsula." So Dr. Mizanur Rahman is an assistant professor of history at BRAC University with expertise in connected histories, space making, historical migration, and diasporas. He received different scholarships and grants from several institutions, including University of Brunei Darussalam. He was a graduate fellow of the Asia Research Institute, the National University of Singapore, and a visiting fellow of the Erlangga Institute of Indian Ocean Crosswords in Indonesia. He is a section editor of the Traversing Boundaries, Transnational Mobility, Interconnections and Security in the South Asian region, which is a Springer Nature Singapore, Springer Nature will publish. He is a member of different academic bodies, notably the Bangladeshi Itihas Samiti, Midwest World History Association of the USA, and the Center of South Asian and Indian Ocean Studies of Sunway University of Malaysia. He simultaneously writes in Bangla and English. His work has appeared in several refereed and non-refereed journals, including the Journal of the Malaysian branch of the Royal Asiatic Society, Journal of World Medical and Health Policy, Journal of the Asiatic Society of Bangladesh, Journal of Maritime Studies, and National Integration, Bangla Academic Journal, Banglapedia, National Encyclopedia of Bangladesh, and conference proceedings from the Amsterdam University Press. The title of his monographs, 2 monographs, is Spatial History of Bengali Transnational Community in the Malay World, and Dhaka Shahare History of the Subalterns of Dhaka City, 1864 to 1905, published in 2005. So your book has 2025. So your book was published in this year 2 books, or last year?
Last year only. This year.
At the end of last year 1 book and it's 1 year. So over to you.
Thank you for your introduction, and thank you audience and
colleagues. Okay, outline of my presentation of this paper is first I will show you the background of this paper and mapping the Bangla speaking community and Malay Peninsula. So geographical location of the two regions. Then I will show migration patterns of the Bangla speaking community. So and then I will show religion-based association and activities of the Bengali migrants in the Malay Peninsula and a ripple effect. I want to just mention that all of discussions within Indian Bangladeshi border. So my paper talks or discuss beyond the territory. That means Bengali community in the Malay Peninsula, how they were affected by this partition of 1957. So a little effect of the partition of 1957 and constructive disengagement, and finally I will contribute. So these are my outline. Okay. So before going to start my discussion, I want to show this picture because why? Because the whole discussion will reveal this story. That you can see the banner, and it is a musical evening. When I was in Singapore, I went there when I was a fellow of the RA, and I took interviews some Bengali descendants in Singapore and Malaysia, but it is from Singapore, and one of my interviewees invited me to join this musical evening program, and you can see in the banner two pictures. One is Rahman and the other person in Lahore, the Memoryscapes. Now a question that why these two pictures? So I will discuss this throughout my paper. Okay, so background, that is Bengali migrated worldwide, including the Malay Peninsula during the colonial period. And the second partition of Bengal in 1957 affected the Bengali migrants in the Malay Peninsula, and it became more visible after the independence of Bangladesh in 1971. So I posed three questions in this paper, that what were the migration patterns of the Bengalis during the colonial period, and what were the post-1957 and 1971 responses of the Bengali migrants, and how did the Bengali Hindu and Muslim diasporic communities interact each other from home. So these are three questions I looked for in this paper. To address these questions, this paper focuses on two interrelated issues. First, this paper deals with the different migrant patterns of the Bengalis in the Malay Peninsula and the making of the diasporic space there. Secondly, this paper illustrates social interaction between the Bengali Hindu and Muslim migrants after the partitions of Bengal and the independence of Bangladesh. Research methodology and source, I used archival and non-archival sources and also oral testimonies, and I will not describe all these sources here. I describe it in my paper. Now, mapping the Bangla-speaking community and Malay Peninsula. So, the Bangla-speaking community is an ethno-linguistic group. The home of the Bangla-speaking community is called Bengal, which covers presently Bangladesh and West Bengal of India. And its boundary has been changed frequently due you know. Colonial Bengal was formed in 1765 and it partitioned first in 1905. It was again partitioned in 1947 along colonial lines when Hindu majority West Bengal became part of India and Muslim majority East Bengal or Eastern Bengal joined Pakistan. As of 2010, about 300 million people speak Bangla worldwide as per the report of United Nations. Among them, around 8 million native Bangla speakers are living abroad. So, we can see here the geographical location or states of Bengal, West Bengal and presently Bangladesh. Now, the map of Malaya. So, as another part of my paper is Malaya. The Malaya Peninsula covers presently Malaysia and Singapore and the southern part of or southern portion of Thailand. And this paper mainly focuses on Malaysia and Singapore. So you can see that basically it was convenient to migrate the Bengali community to the Malaya Peninsula. Now, migration patterns of the Bengali people or Bangla speaking community in the Malaya Peninsula. So, two types of migration occurred in colonial Bengal. One is internal migration and another is colonial immigration or migration. Internal immigration means the inland migration of police laborers in the tea garden region, including the Assam, Valley, Sylhet and Chittagong. Colonial immigration denotes the migration beyond the sea or British or non-British colonies. And this paper mainly focuses on colonial immigration. So Bengali migration patterns can be examined through Lee's push and pull model. So in his study, Edward Lee showed some variables that drive people to leave their countries. And these variables either hold the people in an area or pull them to distant places. We call these countless variables as minus factors or push factors and plus factors or pull factors. He also mentioned intervening variables are obstacles during the migration such as distance, physical barrier or hooked wire fencing যেটা আমরা বাংলাদেশ ভারতের ভিতরে দেখতে পাই, cost of transport and immigration laws, personal factors include marriage networks and awareness of conditions. So we can see here list minus plus zero variables and some obstacles in that graph. So origin and destination place. So the place of origin you can see some plus minus and zero variables, and also in the destination place you can see some variables which basically attract them to migrate and intervening obstacles, what I mentioned. So the push and pull factors of the Bengali migration, I have described all these issues in my papers broadly, so I will not discuss here because shortage of time. So pull factors in Bengal was natural disaster or famines and displacement, economic drain and poverty, impact of British colonial rule, overpopulation and convicts transportation. Pull factors in the Malay Peninsula were job opportunity for skilled and unskilled migration. Still you can see Bangladeshi people are migrating there. And Bengali in chain migration, marriage migration or personal factors, Bangladeshi rich people on move in recently, for example, Assam or Azistan, that is business migrants, so that is another issue. Now, religion-based association and activities of the Bengali migrants. So we already discussed in the last few slides that who are the Bengalis and what are the reasons to migrate to the Malay Peninsula. And now we will see their activities, diasporic activities or association, what they did in the Malay Peninsula. So, a religion-based association, Bengali Hindus and Muslims have formed several social, religious, and cultural associations since 1920s. And Malayan Bengali Association, or MBA, one of the earliest Bengali associations, started functioning in Malaya in the 1920s. Its membership was based on a common language and ethnicity, mainly from Kolkata, Dhaka, Chittagong, and Medinipur. But members are mainly Hindu, and they celebrated Durga Puja and Kali Puja or Deepavali. Bengali migrants and other descendants founded Bongo Muslim Sammanani or Bengal Muslim Association in Singapore in the 1920s. And the Sammanani arranged different social and religious events and programs. In 1935, the Sammanani celebrated the silver jubilee of George V at Rangil Road. In 1938, on the birthday of the Prophet Muhammad, the Sammanani arranged a military and a religious talk. And they served a public feast where more than 1,000 guests from different diasporic communities were present. Okay. In 1947, Ranendra Karmakar, his father and a notable person, founded the Bengali Association Singapore or BAS. And the members are primarily second or third generation Bengalis who migrated from the undivided Bengal. Religious festivals including Durga Puja, Lakshmi Puja, Saraswati Puja or Dol, they celebrate. And before the independence of Bangladesh, BAS or Bengali Association Singapore was the sole registered association of the Bangla speaking community in Singapore. Because Singapore government did not encourage the people, national community, to form different associations in the same name. For example, Bangladesh Itihash Samiti, Bangladesh Diasporic. So Singapore government never accept this type of duplicate association, and that is why that was the only organization. During the early 1970s, some Bengalis from Eastern Bengal met informally and arranged some social function through the Bangladesh High Commission. Meanwhile, a new wave of Bangladeshi migrants started arriving in Singapore and set up an association named the Singapore Bangladesh Society. And many Hindus were the members of the Bengali Association in Singapore, whereas the Muslims were the members of the Singapore Bangladesh Society. And the ripple effect of the partition of 1947 and constructive disengagement. The British experienced the most significant anti-colonial movements in Bengal after the first partition of Bengal in 1905. English educated Hindu Bengalis of West Bengal started anti-partition movement. For example, Swadeshi movement, we know that. British product boycott, civil disobedience movements and revolutionary activities from 1905 to the 1930s. The colonial authority enacted different suppressive acts and policies to stop these movements. Many Bengali leaders or revolutionaries fled to the Malay Peninsula, and it was the safe place for the Bengali revolutionaries. And Khandekar and Sengupta suggested that Bengalis came to Malaya to avoid this political persecution. Though the partition of Bengal was annulled in 1911, it seeded separatism based on communal lines in Bengal. Bengali migrants who fled to escape the colonial suppress act to the Malay Peninsula, they were the eyewitness of communal scuffles in homeland. It had a ripple effect of the Bengali diasporic community in Malaya. And this communal division is reflected in the formation of civil society association or organization in British Malaya in the 1920s. For example, the Malayan Bengali Association or Bengal Muslim Association. It was clearly visible after the second partition of Bengal in 1947. To minimize communal scuffle or to establish social harmony, several attempts were made in Bengal. For example, Chitranjan Das, Bengal Pact, and for the undivided independent Bengal movement. However, the second partition of Bengal in 1957 occurred based on communal lines, which affected Bangla-speaking migrants in the Malay Peninsula. Some Bengali Hindus were migrated from eastern Bengal to Malaya, and their descendants opted to leave for Calcutta after 1947. For instance, Sarojininath Bardhan and Bhupendra Chandra Majumdar migrated from eastern Bengal to Malaya, and their descendants settled there and developed their Calcutta-based networks in Malaya after the partition of 1947. Consequently, Hindus and Muslims began to make associations separately after 1947. After the independence of Bangladesh in 1971, the Bangla-speaking community was split along the lines of national identity. Members of the two Bangla-speaking communities, for example SBS or BES, continue to perform parallel activities with minimal social interaction. Such interaction, although minimal, could be best described as constructive engagement, which means that two groups are interacting with a mutual but respectful distance. The idea of civil indifference also can be helpful to understand such social relationship. Recently, relationships among the Bangladeshi diasporic community have often been influenced by national politics within Bangladesh. For example, during the election of the Management Committee of Bangla Language School in 1992, two Bangladeshi lecturers of the National University of Singapore contested for the post of president. The election split the Bangladeshi diasporic community into two groups. One group tried to obtain support from the Bengali parents from West Bengal. Other groups wanted to oppose it. Yes, I am going to finish. Referring to a school text that contained the Indian flag, one candidate criticized the other for his silence about the matter, and their candidates argued that Bangla school's textbook should keep away from national identity. This faction raised the question of why the recommended textbook had been selected from Calcutta-based Hindu writer, whereas most students were from Bangladesh. They wanted a proportionate representation of this textbook and author from both West Bengal and Bangladesh. Okay, this is the picture from that musical event program. This is the banner, and she sings. And this is the descendant of a Bengali woman. She migrated from the old Dhaka. And now in Singapore, she took me there. And basically, she tried to bring two communities, two Bengali communities, West Bengal Bengali, Bangladeshi Bengali, to put together. That's why this type of program she arranged. Ongoing information, finally, yes. Geographical favorable location of Bengal and the Malay Peninsula facilitated the migration of Bangla-speaking community during and after the colonial period. Socialist Edward Lee's push and pull factors can be used to examine the Bengali migration to the Malay Peninsula. The partitions of Bengal in 1905 and 1947 and the independence of Bangladesh in 1971 greatly affected the Bangla-speaking diasporic community globally, particularly in the Malay Peninsula. They formed parallel association in the 1920s. Such separatism was clearly visible after the second partition of 1947. And Singapore government, what I mentioned, Singapore government discouraged religious-based violence among the migrants community or diasporic community. Therefore, the Bengali migrants were never involved in any violence, but they established separate associations, though the Bengalis from West Bengal of India and Bangladesh practice common culture, including language and food habits. Their social interaction can be articulated as civil indifference. Thus, the study greatly contributes the Bengali migration studies as well as the recent flourishing area partition studies. Thank you all for
So we have about
One minute.
10 minutes for question answer discussion.
I have a question. Was the music any good? We've got 1 minute question. Was the evening any good?
music. Yeah.
Was it any good? The Rabindra.
Yeah, it was good. And both community from Bangladesh side and West Bengal side, they joined.
Was it good?
How was it?
How was it?
Was
Good.
the music good?
Good.
Did you sing as well?
Yeah.
Did you sing?
All right, so you talked
No,
about
I did not sing that.
Bengali
But
immigration
because,
to...
you know, that was my second visit to Singapore, and I found a lot of Bengali people speaking Bangla, and this favorite song from Rabindranath, and yes.
I know the artist, the solo artist.
No, I didn't.
I know her very well. She's from Silchar, our part of. So she sings very well.
Because at that time I was very new, so I didn't know.
Very well.
We're talking about Bengali influxes in Malay. You did, I went off to get a cup of tea, but so I may have missed it. Did you talk about how Netaji was also in, Azad Falls, how that also had played a part in all Bengalis well-being?
Yes, it is a small part of my PhD thesis. So my PhD is already published by Cambridge. So I discussed about their participation in the war, particularly anti-British movement in Malaya.
And were they allowed to stay, or did they have to?
No.
They had to sort of, how shall I say, hide or mask their anti-British sentiments.
Definitely, after the war, when the British owned, so they again recaptured the British area, Malaya area, and the Bengali who supported the Japanese, particularly who committed crimes, they were sent by the British government to India or Bengal. That kind of was not
that great,
violent,
yes. They were allowed to stay there.
Yes.
I was just curious. Very interesting. Good question.
Anybody has any comments, any question?
No, just trying to connect it with the partition.
Scholars are now also focusing on that aspect of the partition, like how it's also led to like global migration in how these two are connected.
And that is why Dr. Appa bolo je, you also write a paper about this partition and migration related issues. Then I thought, no, I had something contribute to this conference, so I prepared this paper.
This is really good. It's really good because we are looking at different trajectories of migration nowadays. So it's like history coming back in different ways. It's good.
Yeah, it's good. Normally there's a lot of literature migration taking place in
No,
the
within-
West,
yeah,
in the West, but
West.
this South Asia,
Yes, I
global
remember
South,
when I was
Southeast.
in Oslo, I
Yeah.
heard about more than 1 lakh people migrating from West Pakistan to Norway, saying that the Bangladeshis attacked their villages during 1971. So
Pakistan.
yeah, there are more than 5 lakhs Pakistanis now in Norway, and they all migrated in 1971.
From West Pakistan?
With that,
West
taking-
Pakistan.
from West Pakistan.
They just distorted
Specific
it.
villages.
Check geography.
Yes,
And they did not check
yes,
geography.
they say so, I took a silence.
So we just went like that. No, and the very back of geography.
With that note, we end this session. So thank you very much, everyone, for your participation.
There's a little summary that
আমাকে দিতে পারে
আচ্ছা
হ্যাঁ
Now I think it's time
I
for
think-
lunch. We'll just confirm in a bit.
Oh.
And lunch is on the 6th floor, so just one floor upstairs.